Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Motor City Mad Mouth Show. Yes, you got it, the Motor City Mad Mouth. We are here at the Black Rock Bar and Grill out in Tampa, Florida. The franchise owner is Craig Picard, who will be joining us later in the program. Meanwhile, I want to thank my co-host, Leo Haggerty. We normally do sports rap, but we're doing it, the Motor City Mad Mouth Show. And Leo,
we're doing it on a full stomach, that's for sure.
We sure are. I'll tell you, Craig is kind enough to make sure we got some steaks, and we are not hungry people. We're only hungry to entertain you.
And let me do a public service announcement while we're here. Come to the Black Rock, but get the Black Rock. Don't let them cook it. Let it cook in front of you. You just cut a little piece off. You put it on there with the garlic butter. You let it simmer to wherever you want it to, and my God, it is just melts in your mouth.
Let me tell you, this is one of the few times I ever cook in my lifetime, but this Black Rock, that 755 degrees sizzle, is really good. And what significance is 755? Well, the real all-time home run leader, and I mean real all-time home run leader, is Hank Aaron, not Barry Bonds, people, at 755. If I want to go out there and have a lot of juice, I'm not doing it that way, but we got a lot of juice in this show. So let's get to it, Leo. We're going to talk a women's Final Four. Did you ever expect to see two games with two number one seeds lopsided with what we saw last night?
Well, you know what? When you look at this, Scott, it was a crazy matchup. You had two of the Blue Bloods. You had South Carolina. You had Connecticut, who had been there and done that. Now you had Texas, that hasn't been there since 2003 when Coach Conrad was down there, who is still alive at 83 years old. And you've got UCLA, who's never been there. In fact, the only time they've beaten a number one team was when they beat USC during the regular season. They were 0-20. Wow. So now you sat there, and I'm wondering how much Texas and how much UCLA wasn't playing the players but playing the logo. And that's the tough thing. When you look up and go, South Carolina, Connecticut, that's the two premier teams over the past 10 years. I mean, I was hoping Texas would have gotten in. Here's why.
Okay.
Coach Schrader was the one at Mississippi State that was coaching when they stopped. And catch this now, folks. Connecticut's 111 consecutive game winning streak when they hit a jumper in overtime.
Wow.
111. And guess what? Connecticut has the next three at 90 and 70. You got to get down to Louisiana Tech at 54 before you get to somebody else other than a blue shirt with UConn on front.
Well, here's what we have to understand about last night's matchup between South Carolina and Texas. 4 times that these two teams have met. The 3 times that South Carolina has won, including last night, have been by double digits routes. Texas squeezed out a 4-point win. So there comes a point, Leo, where familiarity bit Texas badly, especially in the Southeastern Conference. Can you imagine that's Texas in the Southeastern Conference?
Yeah, well,
that's unheard of.
Well, you know what? South Carolina bit them in the southeastern part of their body too, because it was not a pretty. Neither game was good when you look at it.
Right.
When it talks about competitive. Now, I'm not taking anything away from how hard they played. But Texas didn't have their best game. UCLA definitely didn't have their best game. But again, you know what that was caused by? Connecticut and South Carolina. South Carolina just wears you down physically. They just come after you. And you could see when Booker got in foul trouble with Texas, that was, the beginning of the end. And Coach Schrader, he talked about it. He said, when she got... And he kind of took a little stab at the officials. He said, if you call that right in front of me, why are you not calling everything else? So, yeah, it was you hate to see when a great player gets taken out of the game for foul trouble. And I know a lot of people who are watching that game were probably wondering, hey, wait a second, where's the little arc under the basket where you can't get in to draw a charge? The women's game doesn't have that. They don't have the arc. You can't be under the basket. You have to be out from the basket. But there's no arc like in the men's game.
Right.
Because that first foul on Booker, that was pretty close to a charge.
Well, the amazing thing about it is I liked about the women's game, you have 4 quarters, 10-minute quarters. And I really, truly enjoyed that, Leo.
Well, what it does is it gives you an extra timeout as a coach.
Right.
There's the media timeout at 5 minutes, right after 5 minutes. So instead of just having, in the men's game, it's every 4 minutes, 16, 12, 8, 4, boom.
Right.
In the women's game, it's every 5 minutes. There's a timeout. Plus, you get the timeout in between quarters. With the men, it's halftime. That's it. I'm amazed that we haven't seen the men go to quarters.
Right.
Because that's it. And I'll tell you what, the one thing they need to do, and thank God we didn't see that last night, the last 2 minutes of a basketball game in college now is like getting a frontal lobotomy. It is like every call they make, okay, we're going to review. We're going to make a call, guys. Just make it and stay with it.
Right.
No, we're not reviewing it because I saw it. That would be nice because it's kind of like the NFL in the last 2 minutes. It's like forever.
Well, talk about the nightcap. We obviously saw Connecticut, UCLA. I love UCLA. I really, really do. And the reason why I love UCLA is I had the great opportunity many years ago to interview the Wizard of Westwood, John Wooden. Corey Close embraced John Wooden, and she's embraced everything about UCLA basketball. I even kidded around with her last night during postgame that UCLA basketball, it is, the football team has a little bit of work to do, and everybody in the crowd got a little bit of a laugh about it. But let's not kid ourselves, like you alluded to, Leo, first time in the Final Four, and Connecticut simply put on a clinic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we sat there, and Coach Auriemma comes in and says, we didn't do anything wrong, especially on defense. And they're right. It was just a clinic. It was watching. And you hate to say this, but you could tell what team had been there before and what team was making their first trip. And you can talk all you want about it. Well, this, that, the other thing. The coach had been there. That's huge.
Right.
The players had been there.
Right.
The UCLA, they're like, okay, wow, we're here. And you know what? Everybody does that. Right. I can remember the scene in Hoosiers. Great scene with Gene Hackman. We were fighting about that last night. Val Kilmer, Gene Hackman.
Right.
Who's the better actor? I said, Hoosiers. Gene Hackman.
Right.
They sat there and they came into the Butler Fieldhouse, which is still in existence. The NIT played in the Butler Fieldhouse this year, their finals. He said, pick Ollie up on your shoulders. And they measured from the rim down, 10 feet. They measured free throw, 15 feet. And he said, if you go back to our gym at Hickory, it's the same dimensions. The kids smiled about it. And then Gene Hackman, as he's walking out, goes to his assistant coach. He goes, oh, this place is big. And it was. It was a great atmosphere. And, I can remember seeing Hoosiers in the theater.
Right.
People are standing up. It was like watching Rocky. They actually thought it was happening.
You ever been to the Knights Gym out in Indiana? That was a pretty good place. Candy and I had the opportunity to go there, and it was surreal. I could see myself grabbing one of those little programs, walking around looking like a coach. It's the closest thing I'll ever look to looking like a coach because I can't shoot anyways. And air balls are my specialty at this point in my life. But I look like a good coach, and I was trying to go ahead and look like Gene Hackman. I personally think it's the greatest movie I've ever seen, above and beyond the Rockies. Rest in peace, Gene Hackman. But since we're talking basketball, we can afford to get a Gene Hackman thing in here during this time of the year, without a doubt. So with that said, I had an opportunity to talk to Coach Gino Auriemma, and we talked about the NIL and the transfer portal. And I asked him, would this be more gratifying for you to be able to win like this? And what do you recall his response were? I know what it was.
Oh, yeah, it was. It's difficult. And he says a lot of coaches are getting out of it.
Right.
Because now, and think about what Bill Belichick did. He came back into North Carolina. But he's not the general manager. He brought in a guy that's taking care of all this other stuff. Look at what Stanford did.
Right.
Luck is basically running the athletic program. He fired the head coach. And he's not even a member of Stanford. He said, hey, look, we're not working this. It's got to happen. I've talked to friends who have been dismissed because they weren't being able to handle the portal the way it is. They're not raising money. And, I got in this to coach kids, not to raise money, not to go, but that's what it's come down to. And everybody wondered why we're not seeing the Cinderellas in the men's or the women's tournament. We're seeing the Blue Bloods. We're seeing the Power Fives. That's because what they're doing, they're not recruiting freshmen. They're recruiting off the mid-majors. They're looking at these guys. Look at the teams that are in it with the men. There's guys off of other mid-major teams that have come in. They're not a 17, 18-year-old freshman. They're 22, 23-year-old junior and senior.
Right.
And you know what? Guard play dictates everything in a tournament. You've got to have great guard play. And what you're seeing is that happen. I'm going to go right out here now. I picked Houston to win the men. I said because they defend like it's the Alamo. Every possession is like a tie game with the last shot there. They're long, they're athletic, and they're physical. I want to see what Cooper Flagg does with that, because it's going to be a war with Duke. And then you got Florida Auburn. Wow, whoever comes out of that one, it's going to be a great final. Is it South Carolina, Connecticut? Whoever comes out of the men, going to have a great game on Sunday and a great game Monday night.
Yeah, we'll get into that later on in the show, Leo, but I'm glad you mentioned that. But with that said, do you think that Gino Auriemma would retire after this particular, or do you think he has a lot of coaching left?
Oh, I think he's got at least 4 or 5 more years.
Right.
Because that's what you got to tell the kid coming in. Because if I'm a mom or dad, the first thing I'm asking, hey, coach, when are you thinking of hanging it up?
Right.
And I think what he'll do is in the back of his mind, he's got a date of when to get out. And he made a great comment. I know you caught it, Scott, and so did I. I'm still relevant with the kids. And what is he, 68, 60? What did he say? Something late 60s, early 70s.
Right.
And he's still relevant with 18, 19, 20-year-olds. That's hard to do.
Yeah, it sure is in this day and age. When I look at Gino Auriemma, I look at him and I can compare him directly to John Wooden. You talk about a guy who's done it well. And I'll tell you, one thing I don't want to overlook, and I've tried to mention it a little bit, and I will do it hopefully tomorrow night, is I don't want to lose sight of the fact that without Gino Auriemma and Pat Summitt, women's college basketball is absolutely nothing. In fact, I'll even take it a little step further and say that Larry Bird and Magic Johnson were to the NBA what Gino Auriemma and Pat Summitt are to women's college basketball. Is that a fair analogy?
Well, you wouldn't have Batman without the Penguin.
Exactly.
You wouldn't have Robin without the Riddler.
Exactly.
You've got to have some. Caitlin Clark? Who's the other one? I mean, there's got to be somebody. And there was Angel Reese.
Right.
They brought it to the WNBA with them. Yeah. You've got to have somebody. Bird and Magic, Indiana State, Michigan State, brought it right to the NBA. And Larry Bird is the most notorious trash talker in the history of the NBA. But it wasn't trash talk, because he would tell you what he was going to do and then do it. I mean, I can remember they had Michael Cooper on, and he goes, Larry came down, tie game, and said, Michael, I'm going to go down to the square, I'm going to break out, I'm going to catch the ball, I'm going to take one dribble, and I'm going to score. And there was a silence. And then Cooper goes, and he did. Larry Bird would just tell you what he's going to do and then do it. And I can remember they had another guy on, and they're going to tip, and Kent Benson is going to guard Larry Bird. Okay. Now, you know about this.
Oh, yeah.
And Bird just turns to Isaiah and goes, hey, Zeke, you're putting him on me? Zeke just looked at, yeah. And he goes, oh, it's going to be a long night. He dropped 40-some that night, so yeah.
Surreal. And I had the opportunity many years ago to talk to Coach Bird, and I addressed him as Coach Bird, and I, in a very polite way, after he's done with his responsibilities with the local guys, and I asked him, do you mind if I ask you for a little bit of advice? No, not at all. So I understand you were one of the better athletes, Coach Bird. Well, what made you better than everybody else? He said, Scott, and he used my name because I introduced myself to him in a very polite way. I used to think 3 steps ahead of the other guy. And if anybody can't learn from that lesson from Larry Bird, so help me.
And you know what people fail to realize? He may have been 6'10", a smidgen under. He was definitely 6'9". Everybody thinks this is a 6'6", 6'7" guy. He was 6'9", maybe 6'10". Because if you look at pictures, Kevin McHale is 7 foot.
Right.
Robert Parrish is 7'1".
Right.
Bird's right there at eye level. So yeah, we're not talking about. Somebody said, "Oh, this is white guy that he can't play," and this and that and the other thing. Patrick Ewing did a whole thing, and they said, my friend said, "Oh, this white guy can't play," and Ewing came back and said, "Oh, yes, he can." And it's just, it was living proof. And the good Lord took Len Bias from us.
Right.
I would have loved to have seen the Celtics with Larry Bird and Len Bias, what that would have been like. Because that was, oh my God, that would have been just something, unworldly with that.
One can only imagine. So, all right, let's go up the road to my alma mater and a school that you cover a lot. You're South Florida Bulls men's basketball coach Brian Hodgson. Good 2-year run over at Arkansas State. What are your early impressions of Brian?
Well, he really embraced Coach Amir, because I asked him point blank. I said, you normally when you walk into a situation, the coach leaves for whatever reason. This is an extremely difficult situation. I said, how much of what Coach Amir brought to this program do you want to keep here? He goes, I knew the man personally. Okay. Yes, we want to do that. He mentioned the fact that they play up-tempo, but playing fast is only good if you score. And he said, but our offensive efficiency was one of the top ones in the country. So, yeah, they're playing fast, but they're also scoring points, and you got to defend. I coached at Newberry College back, probably we're talking, the late 70s, early 80s. We averaged 99 points a game one year.
Okay.
Without a three-point line. I can remember, we played fast. We played uber fast. One team, Coker College, decided we're going to run with you. Okay, great. They got 127 points. We got 143. This was before the three-point line. Billy Packer, now you know Billy Packer.
Right.
Back when he's doing all the ACC games.
Mm-hmm.
He came out and said, I've never seen a team get 40 points by 2 players. I sent him a little note. I said, check out this. We had one guy, Virgil Wallace, get 44. Johnny Springs got 41. And right. Johnny Springs, God is my judge, and rest your soul, Johnny. He got 11 points in a minute.
Seriously?
Without a three-point line. 11 points in a minute. So, yeah, it was fun. There's a picture in the Newberry College yearbook that year. The clock didn't go to 100. So there's 10 minutes left in the second half, and the score is 0-0 to 99. It was crazy. Yeah, it was just like, okay, you're going to run with this? You better score. You better get 110, because we're getting 120.
And you know what you're going to do? You're going to get my book right to the left, yeah, because we're going to go out there and promote it for a moment. Go ahead, to the left, yeah.
There it is. Hey.
Just so you know that we are here at the Black Rock Bar and Grill out in Tampa, Florida. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Pleased to be joined by Leo Haggerty. And, of course, Craig Picard is going to join us
you got a book for
in a little
Craig,
bit.
too?
Well, yeah, I brought one here for him. I have to take care of this guy. He's one of my favorite people out there. Lonnie Morganroth, if you're watching, take note. Craig Picard and I are doing this show in Tampa. Okay, Lonnie?
You can dress him up, but you can't take him out, can you, Candy?
Yeah, but this book entails 45 years of mine in the experience in the business, and I'm going to tell you, I was glad to get...
Volume 2's coming out soon, isn't it?
Yeah, we're going to be working on that.
I expect to be a massive part of that book, by the way, my friend.
You expect? Really? Seriously? Really? No doubt about it, eh?
Somewhere between Jackie Eisenhower, I Should Fall.
I cannot believe that you mentioned Jackie Eisenhower right now. Because
one of the best women's basketball players ever to suit up for the green and gold.
So you're going to tell me that GMTA, what does that stand for?
Great minds think alike.
You know it. Speaking of, Jackie Eisenhower had the opportunity over at George Steinbrenner High School up the road, out in, I guess, Lutz, Florida, right up the road.
Lutz, yep.
Lutz. However you pronounce it, doesn't make any difference. All I remember, as many years ago, I used to reside in Lutz over at Fontana Hall. Another story, another day. Had some good friends there.
That's a whole story and a whole show for another time.
Don't worry, Craig, and he knows that he'll be part of it when we do another show and when we get an opportunity to redo this again, but on a bigger, at prime time at night. We're going to make it work one day during the week. Let's talk about Jackie Eisenhower. You were an intricate part of me getting that interview. She obviously played at Armwood, and her and I did a wrecking ball job on Carolyn Renfro, because the one thing you don't do with me is I graduated from the right university because it was called Bulls. And I'm a bull if you cross me, boy. So I was definitely the right guy to go to that university. Carolyn, I don't know if you're alive, if you're watching, but when I tell you I need to interview you, and I have a couple stories that are banking on it, and you don't do it, and I have to go to your assistant coach and your player who let you have it. Shame, shame, shame. I poured it on, but Jackie did a great job because she poured it on with the points, and the two of us poured it on together, and I really enjoyed having an opportunity to cover Jackie, and thanks for you for making that reunion possible. In fact, now that I'll mention that, Craig, while you're here, I'm planning to bring Leo, myself, Jackie, her significant other, as well, and Candy in here. We're going to have a bite here, and who knows what we'll come up with there. Otherwise, we'll just have a great dinner out. So at least you know you're going to be drafted for a couple of these bad boys. But that was a great interview. That'll also be coming up on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel soon. So as we move along in the process, thanks again, Jackie, for doing it. Thanks for you for putting it together.
Absolutely.
All right, let's talk about Tampa Bay Rays over at George Steinbrenner Field. I'll tell you one thing. Say what you want about the Oakland situation or the A's situation in Sacramento. I know that hasn't worked out well the first week, and I'll leave that for another show. But if the Rays are going to go anywhere, George Steinbrenner Field is a first-class facility. It really is. And nobody has anything to be disappointed in there, knowing it's a one-year situation until they get to drop at least a roof, and who knows what's going to happen there. I'm not going to get into that at the moment. That'll be in our next segment. But what are your thoughts about the Tampa Bay Rays playing at George Steinbrenner Field?
Well, they should be thanking their lucky stars that the Yankees were amenable to that, because other than that, you're looking at going to Dunedin or Orlando, or going back down to Charlotte, and none of them were really viable options. So, yeah, kudos to the Yankees for letting this happen. It's going to be interesting to see. I think they play 19 of their first 21 at home. They're in Texas this weekend. Then it's back home for another, I think, 10 or 12 games. And it's just like they're trying to get it out of the way, because I'll tell you what, folks, April, May, great. June, July, and August, it's going to get brutal out there. There are going to be a lot of rainouts. And they're going to figure out, everybody says, well, we need to play outdoors. No, can't play outdoors in Florida. You can't. I can remember sitting at the Trop, talking to Joe Mann before the game, and the rain and the lightning were just unimaginable. Right. The lights got knocked out a couple times. And I said to Joe, hey, Joe, no roof, we ain't playing. He said, got that right, not playing. So, yeah, if you're going to be realistic, everybody loves outdoor baseball. It's part of the pastime. It's part of our heritage. Right. It's our DNA. But it just doesn't make sense. And I'm not talking about sense. I'm talking about C-E-N-T-S, money.
Right. No question about it. It is refreshing to see outdoor baseball. I had Kevin Rand on the Motor City Man Mouse show earlier, and the one thing he told me, because he worked at the Florida Marlins, is the rain doesn't really affect batting practice an awful lot anyways, but nevertheless it is a factor in Florida, which is why you have to have a dome stadium. Living in the Miami area like I do, the Marlins have a great facility. The only problem is it's in Little Havana and not in a more developed area. If you've ever been down there, you understand, but I really love the facility overall.
Welcome to the Orange Bowl, right?
Yeah, right. Well, I have a lot of, it's on the site of the Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of great memories there now that you mentioned that up. So as we transition over to potential stadium situations, let's talk about new developments in the Rays on that side. Does Tampa have even a chance to make this happen? I know sources of mine told me that Tampa doesn't have the money to pony up, or whether there's enough financial support to make this a natural in Hillsborough, because I don't think St. Petersburg can support Major League Baseball. It's proven that they can't even sell out the building during the postseason, and I've always said Tampa's a great sports town. All you need to do is look at the Bucs. All you need to do is look at the Bolts.
You know what? And again, I'm going to go back and look at this from a very different angle. It is shocking to me that the people in Hillsborough County say, I don't want to drive over the bridge to the Trop. Now, being from Jersey, right? Go see the Phillies, go see the Yankees. You're going over the bridge. I don't care where you're going. You go over the Delaware River, you're going over the Hudson. You had to do that. The fact that in Florida, and I'm going to blame this on Senator Rick Scott when he was the governor.
Okay.
They're all set to have that bullet train from Orlando to St. Pete go right through Tampa. All you had to do then, get on a train, come over, it would be right there. But Governor Scott nixed it because it was Obama money.
Really?
Whatever, but it definitely hurt teams over in St. Pete. Everybody's talking that, Stu Sternberg needs to sell the franchise. Be careful what you wish for it, and here's why.
Okay.
If I'm an owner and I buy this team and I say I'm going to put it in Tampa, what does St. Pete have in terms of initiative to put a roof back on the Trop? They have none. And everybody's saying, well, they have a contract right now with Stu Sternberg that they got to make it playable. Well, the problem is if they sell it, does that contract become null and void? If I'm an owner, I'm buying that team to move it to Nashville because now I got a place to play, or moving it to Charlotte because now I'll find a place to play. Right now, I'm looking at 2 years, maybe, at Steinbrenner, maybe 3. I am losing hundreds of millions of dollars. Major League Baseball is going to have to subsidize an owner if he said he's going to stay here and build it in Tampa because they're not going to rebuild the Trop then. It's going to take 3 years here. That's a problem. Or they're going to move it out. And remember about this was a couple years ago when they talked about the dual home where they'd be half the games in Tampa, half the games in Montreal.
Right.
Yeah, that was like, okay, whatever medical marijuana you're smoking, you need to get away from it. Because that just, now you're talking about a player having to have 2 homes, one of them north of the border, which is now going to become the 51st state, according to Trump. We're going to have that. That's going to be Canada. You know what? That's the 51st, and Greenland will be the 52nd. So, we'll have enough balance in the stars and the flag. But, yeah, it's just, right now, I think cooler heads need to prevail. But what Stu's doing, and I disagree with this, is he's playing Tampa against St. Pete. When he backed out of that stadium deal, he's saying, okay, let's see who's going to give me the better deal. That's a dangerous road to go down because all of a sudden, that fork in the road, you may not be able to take either one, and there you are stuck.
Well, Leo, here's a problem. This fork in the road didn't have to be what it was had Tampa gone ahead and built that stadium adjacent to Tampa Stadium in the first place and then said, well, you know what, St. Petersburg, you can have it. This team should have been in Tampa from the beginning. It should never have even gone to St. Petersburg at all. But because of the fact that they had that stadium out there, they were trying to lure the White Sox and the San Francisco Giants, you can have it anyways. So as far as I'm concerned, baseball rightfully belongs in Tampa, period. Yes, you have to worry about it being 2 or 3 years, but think about it. The NHL carried the Coyotes and bought them for a while until they got it, what they thought was the right owner. We all know where that went. We won't even get into that situation. So I think Tampa has to have Major League Baseball for this franchise to succeed. I don't know whether or not you move it to Orlando. I definitely don't see Charlotte because they don't have a baseball stadium plan in place. So how do you do that? Nashville's the furthest one ahead of the process right now because they have the Nashville Stars. I know Don Manning is a consultant for it, so they have some good baseball people behind it.
Let me test your memory.
Go ahead.
When the Brooklyn Dodgers moved to L.A. after San Francisco,
okay,
where did they play? Do you remember?
Sure, the L.A. Coliseum.
How far was left field fence? 250 feet away, and they had a 150-foot fence. Frank Howard had a field day with that. Can you imagine trying to pitch? And this is like a little league left field. What keeps a baseball team from playing at the football stadium in Charlotte? We don't know. Maybe it is possible.
Yeah,
So you
well,
get a stadium. You know, Nashville. Maybe they can play somewhere there too. Yeah,
wait.
If I'm Tampa, I'm worried because there are places they can go. That's what's scary. It's not like, okay, the only option is St. Pete or Tampa. There's other options. It won't be pretty options, but it'll be
I
down
didn't
the road.
say there weren't multiple options. You're going to go that route. I might as well. I know we're eating at a steakhouse, but there was a team called the Savannah Bananas that played right down the road over at Raymond James Stadium. If you want to start getting into LA Coliseum conversation, why don't the Buccaneers figure out some sort of a way to get them in there so you have a few more people? All right, so you have to have a wall about 9 million feet tall so that they don't go out like the Star Spangled Banner.
Scott, I would bet you another dinner here.
Okay.
That conversation has probably happened already. That, hey, could we go to Raymond James and maybe configure it for baseball? I guarantee you that has probably occurred. And if it hasn't, the Rays aren't doing their due diligence.
Well, let me tell you something. After the turnout that they had, where they had 60,000, and now you saw what a stadium design looks like at that place, and you're the one that brought up the LA Coliseum, sir.
Yes,
Why
I
do you
did.
think I'm bringing up this thing here with the Savannah Bananas? Because we're two bananas looking at a split here to try to figure out what football stadium is the best fit. Really? Seriously? Really? And I do have a hat for it, by the way. Didn't wear it here today, but I'm glad that Craig put us in the wine cellar because I may need a little bit of that wine before this is over
Well,
with.
you know what? I think it's time to bring Craig in so we can talk a little football.
Yeah, we're going to do that. But before we do, though, we're going to talk one more bit about the men's Final Four. Then we're going to talk about the Tampa Bay Bucs. And then Craig Picard's going to join us for the duration of the broadcast. So let's get to the Final Four tonight. Florida, Auburn. Who do you got?
I got Auburn. Just because
Okay.
they're big guys. Florida shouldn't be here. They're down 11 to Texas Tech. And Texas Tech lost the game. All they had to do was chase Florida off the three-point line. Florida made 6 threes in a row, 18 points. If they'd have made 6 twos, 12, Texas Tech still ahead. The fact that they didn't run these guys, and Clayton was the only guy who wanted to shoot, number one.
Okay.
That was it. When you got the ball, run at him. Get him out off that three-point line. But I kind of like Auburn. Bruce Pearl's been there before. He probably was on the wrong end of maybe the worst call in Final Four history when the Virginia kid takes a shot and the Auburn kid moved underneath him and there was just minimal contact. But it's a foul. And they called it. The guy made 3 free throws and Virginia win by 1. Very questionable. He's been there. I'm going to go with the Tigers. Plus, Charles Barkley's going to be sitting there just gloating. That'll be most fun.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I met Charles Barkley at a convention, and I thank Charles very much for saying everything we all want to hear about the NBA and how much of a decline it's been on. And you talk for everybody, and he's in a copy of. He's in that book that you're going to read, by the way, as well. So I'm glad you went out there.
I hope you have one of his quotes in there. The best Charles Barkley line I ever heard was when somebody asked him, said, "What's it like getting old?" He said, "The biggest problem is, I know I'm on the back 9 of life. I just don't know if I'm on the 10th tee or the 18th green."
I never put the quotes in there. I figure a picture's worth 1,000 words like it is with Muhammad Ali in there, and he's in there good. So I'm glad you're giving me opportunities to promote the book because of the GMTA theory. I've got Florida winning it all. I might as well stay with it. And
I got Houston.
Well, I was going there too.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, Duke and Houston. It would be hard to go against Houston. I know Cooper Flagg's a sensational player. But my gosh.
He's a freshman.
He is. Kelvin Sampson is due.
Oof.
Isn't he?
Every year so far for the past 3, they've had a major injury in the tournament that kept them from going. Now he's not. And I'll tell you what, they're gonna make Cooper Flagg earn every point he gets. And if the referees let them play, it's going to be a war. It's going to be a war inside. Because nobody plays defense. Well, I take that back. San Diego State plays defense like Houston. And guess the one team that beat Houston? San Diego State. Because they defend as well as Houston. But what Houston does is they rebound with a vengeance. There's no better rebounding team in the country than Houston. So Duke has to shoot probably 60% because they're not going to get a lot of rebounds. So that's good. I still got Houston, Auburn in the final, and I think Houston prevails finally. Kelvin Sampson finally gets that ring that he deserves.
Well, keep in mind, too, that Houston's been to the finals seven times, and they've never came away with one win. One of the ones that we all expected them to win was Phi Slamma Jamma. We all know how that turned out. And the one thing, another trivia thing that people should realize, that all 4 coaches in the men's Final Four, none of them have won a final. So this will be a first for one of them. All right, time to bring Craig Picard into the big show. Craig, you ready for it? He's ready. He's watching us go at it. And, of course, Craig always knew I was loud, but now he gets to deal with it firsthand. Craig, welcome to the Motor City Mad Mouse Show. He's in the house.
Amazing to be here.
All right, Craig, we're going to talk football first. First of all, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about you, Craig Picard, other than the fact that when I drove a truck from Chicago all the way to Tampa, he was helping me get to the airport. We had a lot of fun, and he fed me along the way. Craig, welcome to the Motor City Mad Mouse Show. Thanks for hosting us today.
Again, absolutely. And we did meet over an advertising truck. Isn't that crazy?
Isn't it?
It is. He drove all the way down here for that. And thank you again for that. But always amazing to be joined here at Black Rock by the Mad City Motor Mouth. And, sitting over here watching you guys go at this, I'm blown away. I mean, the sports facts that you guys understand, and you want to talk sports with me.
You're a wealth of useless knowledge.
Okay, well, it sounds very, very knowledgeable to me. So the fact that I'm on a sports podcast right now just really blows my mind. But thank you.
I call it a broadcast. I'm old school. I don't like hear podcast. I don't care about all you newbies. Leo and I are old school, not only age-wise, but we are old school people. We don't mind the new school stuff, but we are old school, so we are going to call it a broadcast, because I want to take you back to 1979 when I first got in this business, and I'm still here fighting it all through. So, broadcast. Repeat after me. Broadcast.
Broadcast.
He's a quick study.
I am.
Lonnie, take note of it.
I'll pick it up fast, I promise.
I know you will. I have no doubt. And all you people on Black Rock, this should be part of your corporate thing here, that the Motor City Mad Mouth could be coming to a restaurant near you like college football game. He is coming to your city. Couldn't help it.
I know you couldn't.
Oh, come on. We're turning it all loose here on the Motor City Mad Mouse Show. All right, Tampa Bay Buccaneers greatest quarterback. All right, Craig, we're going to lead off with you. Who was the greatest quarterback in Tampa Bay Buccaneers history?
Tom Brady.
Why?
Because, he did put up 2 Super Bowls, and he seemed to, enjoy the sport for what it is, And, I mean, he's a legend at the end of the day. I mean, the results are there. He's quite the contender out there on the field, and he's a true leader, And I think leadership is really what is going to produce results, around a group of people that are trying to support and buy into a cause or a concept.
You.
Well, if you go by Super Bowls, either Tom Brady or Brad Johnson, but I'm going to go with Doug Williams, because John McKay, Doug Williams, Leroy Selman, Richard Wood brought the Bucs, I think, in their third. Yeah, they lost 26 in a row. They finally beat the Saints, but then a year or two later, they're in the playoff game here against the Rams. They lose 9-0, 3 field goals, and the phantom holding call that they called on the Bucs when they scored a touchdown. All of a sudden, it would have been 9-7. Now it's interesting, but yeah, I'm going to go with Doug Williams.
Now, if I want to throw a real curveball into this whole thing, I can tell you a Super Bowl quarterback was drafted here but won it elsewhere, Trent Dilfer. But he did it in Baltimore.
How about another one? Steve Young was drafted here, and then they said, no, I'm not coming here. I'm going to the USFL, and then eventually came there because they told Hugh Coverhouse, don't draft him. He's not going to come here. So, yeah, there was a few people that didn't want to come here and told the Buccaneers. In fact, look at Warren Sapp's face when he got drafted. It was a classic, because that's when the ESPN was hammering the Bucs as the Yucks. I mean, Chris Berman just was brutal. And I asked Warren and I asked Derek Brooks one time, when did the Yucks come back to be the Bucs? He said San Diego. They went out there and won on the West Coast. They couldn't win in cold weather. They couldn't win on the West Coast. Finally went out and beat San Diego out there. And now things all of a sudden started changing. Think about this now. Who drafted Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks? Who was the coach? This is interesting. Not too many people remember this. Sam Weich was the person. Would Tony Dungy have drafted them? We don't know. And we're never going to put him on that spot. But Sam Weich. Because the Bears had put out so much disinformation about Sapp, and he kept dropping. Well, Sam White said, hey, I'm taking that guy. He's the best player on the board. That was big.
Well, let's not lose sight of the fact that one guy who never wanted to come here was a guy by the name of Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson was one guy to me, is as brilliant as you can ever get. Ended up playing for the Raiders down the road. Told Hugh Culverhouse, I will not play for you. And Bo is a man of his word.
Do you remember why he did that? This is amazing. This is how screwed up the NCAA was back then. Bo Jackson didn't have a suit. Hugh Culverhouse said, I'll buy you a suit. Come on in. When it got back to Auburn, the NCAA ruled him a professional and he couldn't play baseball. Wow. Bo Jackson told Hugh Culverhouse, and Hugh Culverhouse just trying to be a nice guy. I can't play for you. You cost me my senior year as a baseball player. Because Bo knew baseball, that's for sure. But that's a very interesting story. And if you look at one little sidelight, Will Wade just got the job at NC State. He was fired at LSU because he was playing players. Now it's legal. You know what NIL stands for? Now it's legal.
Yeah, right.
And it is. And these guys are making... The NCAA's got to get the portal under control. They got to get NIL under control. They got to do something. The fact that they did nothing after losing the O'Bannon case, I'm amazed someone up in Indianapolis and said, hey, guys, this is what's coming. We need to deal with it. Yeah, they just said, Congress will deal with it. Heck, Congress can't deal with this country. They weren't going to get involved there. But let's get back to football.
That's okay. Let's get back to football, and we'll talk about the fact that Reggie Bush got his Heisman Trophy because of all this collegiate chaos.
Yeah, all they did was give his mom and dad a house.
Right.
I mean, in Texas back, if you were going to a school in Texas when the old Southwest Conference was there, you got a car. I mean, it just happened to show up. Hello, there's a car for you. Okay, fine. It's when Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh, probably the most conservative justice on the court, when this case came there, said the NCAA business model is unsustainable. If it was anywhere else in the business world, it would have collapsed years ago. You're saying that you are going to have your employees provide you with all your revenue and not pay them? That goes against everything in capitalism. So, yeah. And I can remember when Connecticut won the NCAAs here, and the kid came out for Connecticut and said, I can't even take my girlfriend out for a pizza after. Oh, that's when everything woke up, and they said, okay, we got to take care of these kids.
All right, let's go back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I know a guy you're all too familiar with is Leroy Selman. What are your best recollections, Craig, of Leroy Selman?
You know, that is, I mean, outside of watching, old school Bucs football, which was a little bit before me, the restaurant Leroy Selman's had the most incredible cornbread casserole you could ever imagine.
Okay.
And the wings, yeah. As a matter of fact, my father-in-law went to school with Leroy Selman, and we went to a Christmas party one time, and what an outstanding gentleman he was. That was many, many years ago, but I could tell you, I mean, he could tell you a lot of stories about him for sure, yeah.
Well, let's talk about the fact, to give you a little information about what he's done here in South Florida, is he was a real big part of the development, especially at the early part of the University of South Florida. We know he's known for his restaurants, and he's a legend there in this area. Plus, he has roads named after him. When you think of a guy like him And Tampa has had a lot of its sports heroes, not only through the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Buccaneers. And let me tell you, the Rays have done a pretty good job with some of their players. They haven't won a World Series yet, but they've been competitive under very difficult circumstances with a small market. Obviously, their stadium situation has to be addressed a little bit more seriously because of the fact that the Trop got hammered by a couple of hurricanes. How would you summarize the Tampa Bay sports scene in general from what you've been able to see? And if you had some Tampa Bay players come into the Black Rock Bar and Grill?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've had many from the Bucs, from the Rays. I kind of just let them go and let them do their thing. They're probably used to people coming around. But unfortunately for the Rays, they don't have a home. And having a home is very important. You have to have a foundation, and they don't have that right now. So, they're up against a lot of adversity, and I think that they're going to do everything that they can. And it's great because, they're playing right down the street here from my restaurant, and, that helps with business for a lot of the local businesses in the area, too, in really tough times. So, but as far as, sports overall, I've been to the Lightning games, which are always, always incredible. They're just so electrifying, and it's just a real charged up time. And, the Bucs game, of course, you don't want to go when it's too hot outside because you'll definitely walk away with some nice sunburn.
Make sure you sit on the right side of the stadium.
That's right. Yes, on the right side. Yeah.
Right.
Yes, for sure. And and the Rays again. I think there's talk of the Rays going to Orlando and then the Magic coming here. I don't know that an NBA team might not help balance things out. Then again, I don't really know what I'm talking about. That's what I'm sitting here talking with you because you know it all. So.
Well, I don't know if I know it all, but I'd like to think I know a lot. But the one thing I can ask you is this. Let's talk about the Buccaneers on Sunday. The Black Rock Bar and Grill here in Northwest Tampa get some pretty good crowds coming in from the Buccaneers games?
We sure do, yes. We have 32 TVs, and I am looking at getting the NFL package again. And, we also have a private room with a large screen where I can do watch parties, if you want to call, and make arrangements for that. Certainly, definitely a great spot to go watch sports. I have 24, beers on tap and a full liquor bar. And, of course, the star of the show, which is the 755-degree volcanic rock, where you cook your steak, filet mignon, ribeyes, New York strips, lobster tails, scallops. You can put anything you want on the stone, and it's going to cook it to perfection. It's an incredible experience, for you and a party and, to enjoy. So.
And I'm going to ask.
I turned that right into the restaurant from sports, didn't I?
I'm going to ask you a question because you can say no comment, okay?
Okay.
That steak sauce is phenomenal. What's in it? And if you want to say no comment, come test it out. Go right ahead.
I'll tell you what's in it. A lot of effort, a lot of love, a lot of care, a lot of support, a lot of, a lot of great people that support this business. That's what goes into the sauce. And I know you're talking about the rock sauce, but, no comment. Other than that.
Comment with a lot of information. You still got the no comment with some information in it. Has anybody ever compared that 755-degree rock with a famous ball player like Hank Aaron before in front of you?
No, not yet, but you just did, so I can say that it's at least happened once now.
Well, there you go. All right, so let's talk a little bit further about how you, Craig Picard, became the actual franchise owner of the Black Rock Bar and Grill. I know that the restaurant has been in another hand or two, but I want to know how you became more involved here, and how are you doing under your leadership to make this one of the best steakhouses in the Tampa area, knowing full well that one of the bigger steakhouses that people that come to is Burn's Steakhouse.
That's there's a lot involved in that, and I've been here for over 8 years, and I started as the general manager, and I fell in love with the concept, the support from the company up in Michigan. I'm all the way down here, and I wouldn't even realize it because we're a real tight-knit company. I'm proud to work for the company. At the end of the day, I was proposed an opportunity to purchase the restaurant just a little over 2 years ago, and over talking about it with my boss, who is my wife, we decided to take a leap of faith into being restaurant owners. And as it would be, things have been really good. But at the end of the day, I have the opportunity and the privilege of surrounding myself with the most incredible people. And over the years, I've developed a culture here that is based on taking care of one another. At the end of the day, serving steaks on a stone is just a process. It's something we do, but it's the person behind it and understanding who that individual is and what they're fighting for in life, and being sensitive to, today's generation, in a lot of ways. So it's just about creating a culture and taking care of people and providing an excellent quality service with a high food quality and, creating a memory and an experience. Black Rock can give all of that to you.
Well, I know the real story behind it, and I do want to touch on it just briefly. My brother Lonnie, myself, my mom and dad were over in Aruba, and Lonnie saw a restaurant called the La Petite that did the same concept. And I'll give my brother a lot of credit. When he sees an idea, he's like his older brother. Once it's in his head, he sticks with it. So yeah, Lonnie is my younger brother, but he's done a masterful job as a businessman in everything that he's undertaken. And I'm glad he's been able to take that experience and turn it into a fledgling restaurant business, and taking a lot of ideas and surrounding himself with some quality people to turn out the product day in and day out across several states in the United States. And I'm just so glad that you're here with me, my and Leo, as we're doing the show. And we're looking to hopefully to do one or two more shows before it's all said and done. But Leo has some other sports questions that he wants to ask you. Go ahead, Leo. In fact, I'm going to give you the microphone and give my hand a break.
Yeah, it looks like it needs one. Hey, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. A New York Jets fan, huh?
Oh, yes. I have been a New York Jets fan since I've been about 8 years old. Going into too much knowledge about Jets history other than, not such a great winning streak. I know some of the highlights of, times here and there, but people ask why and how I became a Jets fan, and that's kind of the cool question about it.
And you know what? Talk about bad history. Talk about the good history. Joe Namath beating the Baltimore Colts in the guaranteed win, right?
That was Johnny Unitas and, Broadway Joe. Yep, for sure. And, we look back on that Super Bowl win as Jets fans, and we realize that there's still a chance that maybe someday we can be up there or at least get in the playoffs. I mean, come on, Jets. It's been, 16 years now since we've been in the playoffs? So close, but, you got a fan in me, and I'm gonna hang in there,
The hardest thing is you're in the AFC East. You got to fight Buffalo twice a year. You got to fight the Patriots twice a year. Miami twice. Problem with Miami is you go down there in the summer and you roast because they're going to wear the white jerseys and they're going to make you wear the green. And
it's always a concern. I mean, it is a tough division. Of course, the Bills and Josh Allen. Again, look at me acting like I know what I'm talking about when it comes to football. But I can really watch football very well, and I can eat very well, and I can certainly enjoy some beers in the process.
You know what? Let me get your opinion on the tush push.
Okay.
Everybody talks about that they want to ban it because the Eagles do it well and Buffalo's starting to do it well. Even the Packers, they put their tight end. Baltimore, put Andrews under center. So there's 3 or 4. I'm looking at it this way. If I couldn't stop Kareem's skyhook, do I ban it? I mean, I think the reason they're doing this is their left tackle, Maliata, is from Australia. This looks like a rugby Australian rules football play, doesn't it?
It really does, and again, it's a strategy and it's a play. And, I actually watched this thing on ESPN about where scientists actually went in and they really explored how this works and the angles you got to come in and stuff. But if you can execute the play, there's got to be a way to stop it too. So that's kind of where I would be stuck. I think it's a valid play. I think it's, if they're doing it, then you better be ready for it, and you better be ready to execute a play to stop it at the end of the day.
It's kind of funny because they asked Jason Light, because the Bucs were one of the few teams that stopped the Eagles 2 years ago on the tush push. Well, what they won't say is, because they grabbed Jalen Hurts' helmet and they didn't call it. But when you look at the NFL, Here's what's bothering me. Tell me if it's bothering you. I think they're going too far too fast, playing these games in South America, over in Europe. I mean, you're asking these fans to invest in a team 8 times a year at home, but you're taking away one of those games and going to London, to Germany, to Brazil. I'm not into that. How about you?
I don't know that I'm waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning unless it's from my mama's, breakfast. That's about it. And that's where I think you miss out on that game, at the end of the day. But, I think that there's definitely a lot of changes. And, watching sports highlights from back in the day, I don't know why we don't just go back to doing that. Let the guys play football. I understand, this and that and why. But, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say I'm a Birmingham Stallions fan, too. And I'll tell you what, they played last night. They played Michigan Panthers, and they didn't look as good as they did last year. But 1-1, I'll take it right now.
It's football, right?
It is. Well, it's diet football. That's what I call it. It's diet football.
It's not high test. It's regular, right?
You still got the soundtrack to the NFL. You still got that. I think it's fun. I think it's fantastic. So.
Well, I'm going to hand the mic back here to the host, and I think the left-hander's warming up soon for somebody to go. So it's all yours, my friend.
All right, Leo, thank you very much. You mean to tell me right now that the Birmingham Stallions beat the Michigan Panthers?
Last night, yeah.
I guess I won't be one. I recorded that game.
Spoiler
I just
alert.
went out there, and
Spoiler
now
alert.
I won't have to watch that game. Thank you very much. So let's talk about something you just brought up, and we'll wrap up the show in a few minutes. And that's this. Black Rock Bar Grill here in Tampa, you invested into the NFL package. Right, and I know a lot of them, it's a judgment call, but what made you decide to invest into the NFL package, knowing that it's really predominantly used for sports bars, but yet you decided to take a steakhouse and try to create a sports bar type of a feel to try to keep people engaged here longer? That's a great move.
It sure is, and again, there's 32 big screen TVs throughout the restaurant here, and there isn't much better during the NFL than having football on all of them, if you ask me. Maybe a Disney Channel for some kids someplace, but at the end of the day, Sundays and Mondays are made for NFL football, and I'm right up the street from the Raymond James Stadium here.
Right.
And the Bucs games, when they're home, you better be looking for. There's going to be a crowd piling in here after a game. That's for sure.
Well, that's smart. That's true, Leo. Black Rock is right down the road from Raymond James. Football has been played on Dale Mabry Highway a long time. But let's talk about University of South Florida Bulls. They're going to have an on-campus stadium pretty soon. Have you been able to get any of the Saturday crowd at all from USF a little bit on Saturdays?
Not too much. It's it might just be a little bit too far out there, and it's going to require getting into the school and getting some some interest generated and coming over here. So Carewood's a very tight-knit community. It's a lot of older residents that have lived here for many, many, many years. And the restaurant here is located right in the heart of it. So, the typical clientele of the restaurant is, a 4.5 to 5 mile radius of where we sit right now. So getting outside of that would be your USF area, would be your Wesley Chapel area, and, Land O'Lakes and so on.
So do you view the Black Rock Bar and Grill here in Tampa as like a family type of restaurant, community oriented?
Absolutely. Eating a steak on a stone is good for all ages. I mean, you don't want a little baby working its way around a steak on a stone, but obviously, your younger adults. It's an experience that'll just build memories. And the cool thing about cooking a steak on a stone is you'll often see that there's no cell phones. So as a family, you're sitting there and you're talking and you're doing those things, rather than sitting there on your phone. You have to be involved, and it's a great way to sit and talk and catch up and so on without social media or, stuff like that.
That's unique, but you also have other meals that you don't have to cook them on a stone as well. So you have other types of food where if I don't want to cook it myself, you're able to cook it and serve it appropriately. Is that correct?
Oh yes, absolutely. We have a full menu of just about anything. Burgers and a ton of appetizers, a lot of seafood options. I also have a happy hour Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 at the bar, and from 11 to 3 Saturday and Sundays with some really amazing drink specials.
We gotta tie this up then. I mean, we're almost getting 3 o'clock. We're gonna miss the specials here.
You guys got the VIP bracelets, so you're okay. I know a guy who can extend the operation hours on that. So
helps to know the owner.
Yes.
Oh, it sure does. Let alone somebody who I find very close to, one of the classiest people out there.
Thank you.
And again, Craig and I have been doing this a while now. I just drag Leo in. Wherever I go, I drag Leo in with me anyways. Right, Leo?
I'm like Robin to Batman here.
There you go. Him and I are just pretty much inseparable, especially when I get...
More like Abbott and Costello. What do you think?
Well, I got to say one thing about my brother Lonnie, okay? He said, Tampa's one of your hometowns. Well, it really is. I mean, my younger brother's right. Tampa's one of my hometowns. I got this ring USF proudly, and now I just have more reasons to come back. I've covered a lot of big events. Now I have a place to do a show, and I can drag you in here with me when we do it. All I got to do is shoot you a text message. So as we wrap up the Motor City Mad Mouse show, and we look at our first opportunity with the three of us to work together, let's tie it back to the NCAA Women's Final Four, which is our first opportunity to work together. What are your thoughts about what the NCAA Women's Final Four has meant to the area? And have you been able to get any of those people that needed hotels in this area away from downtown even come out to your restaurant a little bit?
Again, once you're downtown, you're kind of stuck down there.
Okay.
Traveling up here, it would be a kind of a stretch, but there's ways to do it from a marketing standpoint, I'm sure. But just got to get the wheels in motion on that. Yeah. Hotels, there's not a lot of hotels in this area. I mean, they're kind of off the beaten path, but.
Yeah, but I found a good one right across the street from Raymond James Stadium, and that's a place where I'll probably be staying going forward. It's really been a great place, Leo, and I'm glad that I've been able to find a central location. If I could get a reasonable rate during the NCAA Women's Final Four for that particular hotel, I know that for me, it's important to be able to go out there and be centrally located. And let's not lose sight of the fact that we're not far from St. Petersburg, and one of my favorite places to go when I'm in the Tampa Bay area is Clearwater Beach as well. Do you ever get a chance to go to Clearwater once in a while?
Sure do. It is absolutely breathtaking over there. Do some fishing over there, and when I can, try and get out to the beach. It's kind of hard to get away from a restaurant from time to time, but
it's only 8 days a week. You
got to make time for yourself in this for sure. So I actually got a nice tan going on, so keep it going.
Well, so meanwhile, that does conclude this edition of the Motor City Mad Mouth Show. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Mad Mouth. Please be joined by Craig Picard, as well as my co-host Leo Haggerty. Leo and I do an awful lot of things. He's on Sports Rap with me on Saturdays from 9 to 10, and of course Leo comes on other shows that I have as well. So this show here is presented by the Black Rock Bar and Grill in Tampa. Craig Picard is the franchise owner, and we're looking to do more and more things. So Craig, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate you hosting us, and we look forward to doing a lot more shows as we go along.
Black Rock, the steak with the sizzle.
That's it. 11702 North Del Mabry Highway, right here in the heart of Carrollwood. Come visit my little cottage in the woods is what I like to call it.
Well, there you go. People come out here. Craig runs a great ship. Ask for Craig Picard and tell him the Motor City Mad Mouth sent you, and he'll know. And who knows, he might even give you a free appetizer in the house.
If you mention the Mad City Motor Mouth in the restaurant, you definitely get a free appetizer. All you got to do is mention his name. That's
Motor City Mad Mouth, you get a free appetizer, and Craig will make sure you get it. So come on in here and join Craig and the rest of the Black Rock Bar and Grill crew out in Tampa. Meanwhile, Leo, as we get ready to wrap it up, any thoughts about your first show, our first remote show here in Tampa?
Well, it went really well. We didn't kill each other. That's the best part. And we sat here, had a great meal, met a great friend, and I'm still alive. Can't beat that with a sharp stick, can you?
No, not all bad. But meanwhile, that does conclude it here. So enjoy the games tonight, and we look forward to doing more and more shows here at the Black Rock Bar and Grill here in Tampa, Florida /Carrollwood. So thank you very much for joining us. If you haven't subscribed to our South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, please do it. Have a lot of great things in the hopper and a lot of things that you can look up that we've done as well. So thank you very much, Craig, for hosting us. And Leo, this was a great first act, and we have a lot more to go, my friend, don't we?
Absolutely. Hey, Black Rock, come sizzle your steak.
You got it. From the Motor City Man Mouth to Craig, thank you very much for joining us. Bye now.